Hey everybody, Stacy with Lenz Sport. Today I'm going to go over some general maintenance stuff with you. The main one that we're going to go over is how to remove your adapters from your bike so that you can keep your axles or the bolts properly lubed. The reason why we want to do this is because it's not a closed system on most bikes. This year we did do something different where we started to incorporate a grease zerk onto both the front and sometimes the rear knuckles. That's going to be a separate video, so we'll worry about that later. Right now we're going to focus on just the general bolts that do not have the grease zerk. Over time the grease just wears down and breaks down just like it does with anything else. So to keep the bike running as optimally as possible and to keep it from rusting and creaking and making funny noises, every so often throughout the season, depending on how often you ride, it's a good idea to pop these bolts out, clean them off, and re-grease them. So we've got my tools already laid out. I've got two different kinds of grease, which I'll talk about in a minute. I have my 8mm wrenches here, my 15mm socket, and a hammer to help knock out the bolt if necessary. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and take my 8mm socket my 8mm wrench and 15mm socket, and we're going to remove the nut. Now this is torqued on pretty good in most cases, so if you have a hard time getting it off, do not be alarmed. Alright, I'm going to set that aside. Now this one is on there pretty tight, so we're just going to take the hammer. Alright, and as you can tell, I have no grease left on this bolt. So I'm going to take my paper towel, and I'm just going to kind of clean off whatever happens to be on there. If it's really rusty, you can clean it off with, believe it or not, I've heard Coca-Cola is really good with removing rust, or a really, really soft Brillo pad or sponge or something of that nature. Okay, once the bolt is removed, I'm going to unclamp it from my table. And I'm going to pick it up and remove the adapter. Normally there's grease on this pad as well, and that just helps keep it from moving around on the knuckle. The knuckle, by the way, is this big block looking thing that the bolt goes through. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove whatever might be on here. I'm just going to go ahead and clean up my bushings. If these brass bushings are destroyed, which does happen from time to time, they're not meant to last an eternity, go ahead and contact us and we can sell you some new ones. Okay. Gonna make a nice little, I don't know, whatever you want to call that. And I'm just going to get rid of any debris, any existing grease that is still in the bushing. And all we're doing is we're making a nice clean surface for the new grease to adhere to. If you have Q-tips, you can use those as well. Alright. Give the bottom of the knuckle a nice little cleaning. Okay. Now, as far as grease goes, at the shop we use a grease made by Finish Line, and it's just a general purpose grease. Here at home, I have two different options. For you conscientious, earth-loving people, we have a plant-based bike grease from Mountain Flow. I actually just got this yesterday and have not had a chance to use it. And it looks like a really nice consistency. Reviews on it is pretty good. But for demonstration purposes, because that's clear, we are not going to use that one. We will, however, use the Park Tool Polylube. And the link for that is on our website. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a piece of paper towel put some grease on the towel, and we're going to go ahead and take that knuckle out, or take the rubber out, and we're just going to put a nice thin layer of grease on the top of the knuckle rubber. And again, this is just going to kind of help keep the rubber from sliding around on the knuckle itself and prolong the life. All right, we're going to set that back in the adapter. Does not matter which way it goes. Okay, then we're going to take some more grease and apply a thin layer and coat the entire shaft of the bolt from thread all the way down to washer. Okay, just like so. We're going to set that aside. Okay, now we're going to make a little tail, if you will. I'm going to put some on here. This is where a Q-tip would really come in handy. I obviously was not thinking that far ahead. But all we're going to do is just kind of put some inside of the bushings. Not staying very well. So let's use a smaller wrench. There we go. Just gonna kind of move it around, make sure it's nice and lubed. Same thing on the other side. I'm just gonna kind of put it in there, move it around. The bushings are only about that long, so there's not a whole lot to go in. Okay. Just to make things a little bit cleaner, I'm going to wipe away the excess from the surface of the bushing. You'll notice that my bike does have a place for grease zerk. It's out for a reason. I will show you how to do that in the next video. All right, now we're going to take the adapter. It's really important that you make sure that the bottom side of the knuckle rubber is seated in that little cutout in the adapter so that it can't move. We're going to place this back on the knuckle, like so. We're going to take the axle. We always thread our axles going from left to right, so you'll notice that all of the nuts are going to be on the right side of the bike. I'm just going to put it through. That happens sometimes. You just kind of have to wiggle it around a little bit. There we go. I'm going to take wipe off the excess grease one more time. The reason why we wipe off the excess grease is because grease attracts dirt, especially on the threads. Not like there's a lot of dirt, but if you're transporting your bike on the outside of a vehicle, like on a rack or in the back of a truck, it can get dirt trapped in there. I'm going to wipe off our washer. Put it back on. Wipe off the surface of the nut. Make sure the threads are nice and clean, which they are. Put it back on. All right, before I tighten it, I'm going to put my clamp back in place. All right. Now I'm just going to tighten down the nut. People ask me if we have an actual torque setting for this, and I just tell people as tight as you can get it. Just like that. And there you go. That is how to properly maintain and lubricate the adapter bolts, the adapter bushings, and the adapter knuckle rubbers. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.